Hi, everyone. I'm Katie McLean, and I'm the CEO of Tusk Hub. And today we're here to talk about the Growth Movement series. And today we also have Jenna Lang, who's part of Lang International, joining us and talking about presence. Hi, Jenna. Welcome.
Hi, Katie.
Uh,
Thank you.
Tell us about yourself and the kinds of companies that you've done work with, and what drives you actually to help people with their communications.
Yeah, absolutely. So I founded Lang International almost 20 years ago, and we are focused on helping individuals have impact with their communication, particularly when the stakes are high. And that high stakes piece is a really important one. I started my career in New York City working with a lot of financial services organizations, helping people get ready for big pitches, big presentations. And I would see individuals who are extremely confident in one capacity go into a high stakes moment and just shrink, become someone else. And that's where this idea of how do we help people transform themselves into what the best version of themselves with the right messaging in the right delivery in these moments that really, really matter, that are defining for people. So that's what we do. And that's what drove me.
I totally get it. And I personally could benefit definitely from that type of support. It often seems that when you're just telling your friend what you're doing, it's great. But when you're sort of in that moment where you're in a presentation or whatever, it's really hard to get it across in the same way. It's like you shrink a little bit and you feel shy about what you're saying. So
Yeah.
I can see that coaching people for that would be helpful. At Tusk Hub, we work with a lot of scale up tech companies. I know you've done some work with companies like Google and Facebook and Microsoft. So maybe can you comment on what it's like what they really have needed to work on in the past?
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned a bunch of big names with very large employee base, right? So we have the Googles and the Microsofts and the Facebooks and the LinkedIn's of the world. We're talking about a lot of employees. And so in those environments, the idea around impactful communication is persuading in. Persuading out meaning for sales organizations to say what is different about what we do, how we do it, and why. I mean, that why piece is so important to be a mission driven organization to say, okay, as Microsoft, how do people feel about us showing up, and do they understand what makes us tick? And then internally, there's that persuasion of how do we get our ideas through a large organization and up the chain of command so they become the most important ideas. So that's that whole idea of impactful communications, both inside and outside a big organization. But what I love is I love working with the smaller organizations, with the startups. So
Yeah,
I
me too.
started my business in the Bay Area in Silicon Valley, and I started our relationships because I had background in financial services with a lot of venture capitalists, private equity firms. And so they tapped me for help with some of their startup companies, like the CEOs who have great ideas, fabulous ideas that don't get the attention that they deserve because they don't clearly communicate. They don't explain what the benefit of the company is and then the why behind it. And it's hard to explain technical things to non-technical audiences and to change that on a dime. So that's the work I'm extremely passionate about, is helping those leaders take great ideas and make sure that those ideas are translated and relevant for every audience they interact with.
That's amazing. And I could see that from the work that we do at Tusk Hub. I mean, we're helping companies to grow their revenue, but putting their, people and purpose before profits and trying to
Mm.
teach them that. And it's been really interesting to see how they've grown from it. And they have different ways of communicating when they talk about stories and purpose first. And then all of a sudden they're beginning to relate more to the way their clients are seeing their product.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a super interesting thing. So,
Yeah.
um, what about video? Like right now, we're all on Zoom and Google Meet and everything like that, sort of
Yeah.
24/7. How can you be the best version of yourself on video? How do you connect with clients? What if you're doing a big presentation and people are like in 30 different places? How do
Yeah.
you know who's listening? How do you see them? Yeah, tell me what you think about that.
Well, I love it. You said they're in 30 different places because they're in 30 different places physically and 30 different places mentally. And we just all have to recognize that people are not always focused on us as engaging as we think we are. They're just thinking about something else. And you mentioned something else, Katie, which is story and the power of story. And what are the companies that are part of Task Hub thinking about with regard to their story and their purpose? So storytelling is a great way to keep an audience engaged, and engagement is a factor that you need to consider, particularly in this virtual environment. What are you doing to tell people, hey, my expectation is that you engage with me and I am going to engage with you? And people perk up and pay more attention when you go into storytelling mode. There's something that happens to audiences, and I love watching this, when you stop and say, for example, when you are on a call, a recommendation I have is to have everybody take themselves off mute and just say good morning. So I said, for example, and then I gave a little anecdote. When you say, for example, and you're talking to someone, all of a sudden they listen in a totally different way because you're going to tell a story. You're going to make it relevant for them. So that's one way to keep them engaged. And the other two things I would say about this virtual world we're in is, one, pay attention to your environment, meaning the laptop you're using, your camera, your background. Are you standing? Are you sitting? Are people able to see your hands, see you gesture, see your face? Because that's going to help you feel comfortable and be the right version of yourself. And then the second thing is try to create as much efficiency as you can. People are exhausted. This is a performance. It's 8 to 9 hours a day of a performance. There's no newscaster on the planet that is recording for 8 to 10 hours a day with a camera straight. And that's basically what we're asking the world to do. So it is really exhausting, and we have to be very well structured and well organized in how we run meetings so that we save people time.
I think that's great advice. And I never really thought about it as performing.
Yeah.
And that idea is, how do you have a presence for that many hours in a day, right? So we talked about moving between sitting and standing before, and I think that's brilliant. I usually just sit, but I think I'm going to alternate more now.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, thank you, Jenna. This was so helpful. I think we could all use a little help, and we all have things we can do to improve our presence and how we talk about what we're doing and who we are and what we believe in. So this has been very helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.